The rain had just stopped outside the tall glass walls of the Hale penthouse, leaving the city slick and shimmering like a river of light. The storm had washed the smog away, and now the skyline glowed, the neon veins of New York pulsing through the night. Inside, everything was pristine, controlled, and quiet. Too quiet. Alexander Hale sat on the long velvet couch, his white shirt still crisp from work, the top buttons undone. He'd come home late again, past midnight, as usual. His assistant had already left, and the world thought the great billionaire CEO was asleep. But in truth, he hadn't slept properly in weeks, maybe months. He glanced at the time. 12:37 a.m. Any moment now, she would come, Lena, his maid, the quiet one, the girl who seemed to float instead of walk. She barely spoke more than 10 words to him in a day, but she was always there, cleaning his office, arranging his suits, leaving tea by his bedside. Always careful, always invisible. He noticed things others wouldn't, how she flinched whenever someone raised their voice, how her hands shook the first few times she poured his tea, how she smiled softly when she thought no one saw the kind of smile that didn't belong in a place like this, where warmth was as rare as honesty. He didn't know why he cared. Maybe it was because she reminded him of something he'd forgotten, gentleness. Maybe it was because she didn't want anything from him. Everyone else did, investors, partners, even so-called friends. But Lena treated him like a person, not a name. And so tonight, for reasons he couldn't explain, Alexander decided to test something. Himself, or maybe her. He stretched out on the couch, loosened his tie, closed his eyes, and pretended to sleep. The city's hum filled the room. The fire in the hearth cracked faintly. The smell of cedar and rain hung in the air. A soft knock came at the door. He didn't answer. The door creaked open anyway. Her footsteps were light, hesitant, like someone entering a church. She always waited until he was asleep before finishing her work. He knew that. She must have thought he was resting already. He heard the faint clink of silver as she placed a tray down. The scent of chamomile drifted toward him. Her voice was barely audible, a whisper to herself, "I hope he drinks it this time." He kept his breathing slow, steady. She walked closer, adjusting the blanket on the back of the couch. Her movements were precise but nervous. He could almost feel the tension radiating from her, the carefulness of someone who'd been punished once for doing too much or too little. Then she lingered. He heard her sigh. It was soft, tired. "Sir," she whispered. Her voice trembled, fragile as glass. "You really shouldn't work so late." He felt his chest tighten. No one spoke to him like that, not in that tone, not with that quiet concern. He wanted to open his eyes, to look at her, but he stayed still, waiting, listening. There was a long silence. Then, the faint rustle of fabric as she knelt beside him. He could hear her breath, shallow, unsure. "I don't know why I'm saying this," she murmured, more to herself than to him. "You can't even hear me." Another pause. "But you look so tired all the time. Everyone says you're cold, ruthless. Maybe they're right, but I don't think so." Her words were soft, hesitant, as if she was afraid of her own honesty. "When you come home, you always stop at the window. You stare out for a long time, like you're searching for something that's gone." Her voice broke slightly. "My father used to do that too." The sound of her confession made something inside him ache. "He worked himself sick," she whispered. "Said it was for us." But he never smiled anymore. Even when he was home, he wasn't really there. She laughed weakly, the sound trembling with sadness. "I used to make him tea too," he said. "It was a waste of time, but I'd still leave it by his bed." A tear slid down her voice. He could hear it. "I guess I never learned how to stop caring for people who don't see it." He felt a lump in his throat. He didn't expect this. He'd wanted to see if she was careless, if she spoke ill of him when she thought he wasn't listening. But instead, Found something else entirely. A mirror held up to his own loneliness. Her hand brushed his sleeve gently, hesitant but tender. "You remind me of him," she whispered. "Always trying to be strong for everyone else. But no one strong ever really rests, do they?" He swallowed hard, forcing himself not to move. Then she reached into her pocket. There was a soft crinkle of paper. "I make one every night," she said quietly, almost embarrassed. "A paper star. My grandmother taught me," she said, "if you make 1,000, your wish will come true." He heard her place something on the side table beside his cup of tea. "I don't even know what I wish for anymore," she continued. "Maybe that you find peace someday, that you remember how to smile." He couldn't breathe for a second. The air felt heavy with emotion he didn't know how to name. She stood up slowly, smoothing her skirt. "Sleep well, Mr. Hale," she whispered. "You deserve it, even if you don't believe that yet." The sound of her footsteps faded. The door clicked softly shut for a long while. Alexander didn't move. The rain began again outside, pattering gently against the glass. He opened his eyes, finally, blinking into the dim, golden light of the room. The paper star lay beside his tea, small, creased, imperfect, glowing faintly in the lamp's glow. He picked it up, turned it between his fingers. On one of the tiny folds, he saw faint pencil writing. He squinted closer. It said, "For those who've forgotten how to rest." God, that was when his composure cracked. All the noise and armor he'd built over years of business wars, all the arrogance and control, it all came undone with that single, fragile message. His eyes burned. He tried to blink it away, but the tears came anyway, falling soundlessly onto the star. He thought about her, the shy girl who never looked him in the eye, who worked quietly while he barked orders and lived like the world owed him obedience. And yet, she saw him more clearly than anyone ever had. She saw the man behind the empire, the tired soul behind the wealth. He leaned back on the couch, clutching the star in his hand like something sacred. The tea had gone cold, but for once, he didn't care. He thought about her father, about his own, about how he'd built his empire, trying to prove he wasn't weak, that success would fill the hollow inside. But it hadn't. It only made the silence louder. And now, one quiet maid had shattered it all with nothing but kindness. He stayed there for a long time, lost in the echo of her words. When dawn began to seep through the glass, he still hadn't slept, but he felt something different, lighter, quieter. He rose slowly, walked to his desk, placed the little paper star right beside his computer monitor, the one spot he always looked at when he worked. For the first time in years, the billionaire smiled. It wasn't perfect. It was small, almost shy, the way hers had been. Then he whispered into the morning light, "Thank you, Lena." Somewhere down the hall, in the maid's quarters, a young woman sat on her narrow bed, hands folded, wondering if maybe, just maybe, the man she had spoken to in silence had finally heard her. Because sometimes, words don't need to be spoken aloud to reach a heart. Sometimes, they just need to be left beside a cup of tea and a folded paper star.